Hello, everybody, and welcome to Unanswered Questions. Sometimes we just don't get enough time to answer all the amazing questions from students during our live broadcasts. So we're going to answer some of the top upvoted questions we just didn't get time to answer from November. Let's get into it, shall we?
Woo!
First question. If you don't use social media, can you still be hacked?
Well, I guess the definition, what's your definition of hacked, right? Because there's human hacking where you don't even need to be on technology, right? It's about social engineering, right? Offline, but maybe when it comes to online, what do you think?
For me, I guess any strategy or technique that's used by an attacker to digitally exploit or take advantage of someone,
Right,
would be my definition of a hack.
Yeah. So how would you answer that question? If you don't use social media, can you still be hacked?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you have a bank account's not social media. Can your password be hacked from your bank account?
Yeah.
Possible.
Or if you have a website, that may not be social media, it's still a website.
True.
Well, a website, if you don't have proper protections in place, it can get hacked.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Can you be tracked on TikTok even if you don't have an account?
Well, an individual can't track you, but TikTok is, because as soon as you connect with TikTok, they're capturing your IP and other data that is being sent when you connect with their server, right?
Obviously, if you don't have an account, TikTok is collecting less information about
sure.
you. But yeah, no, they, like every website and social media network out there, even without a logged in account, you're still being tracked and recorded.
Yeah, by them.
What are some of the dangerous things about YouTube?
Interesting question. I mean, I think some people who think that they have YouTube accounts that are hidden, remember, nothing is ever hidden, right? Everything, as soon as you hit that send button, what you post can become public, permanent, searchable, exploitable, copyable, shareable, and yes, for sale. I also think that, what you're saying and doing on YouTube, although funny to you, may not be funny to somebody else, like a future employer. So those are kind of some of the things that you have to be thinking about when you're posting YouTube.
How do you get a bully to stop?
Good question. I mean, it's all about number one, asking them to stop, and if they don't heed your request, then the next step is to approach a trusted adult, whoever they may be, teacher, counselor, vice principal, and bring it to their attention as well. Here in the province of British Columbia, we have the Erase Bullying portal that is run by the province. It's called Erase Bullying, where you can report it there anonymously for them to follow up on as well.
If a much older person were to send nudes or try to sexually groom someone, would you be able to go to the police even if you don't know where they are from?
The answer is yes, you can. Although you may not know where they're from, police can use investigative techniques to hopefully identify where they're from. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, depending upon who this individual is and what it is that they're using to try and anonymize themselves online, it can be trickier for sure. But just recently, we had an individual who was convicted here in Canada for the Amanda Todd incident. Nobody knew who he was. He was hiding behind a variety of different things, but eventually he was caught. So the answer to that question is yes.
And located in a different country.
Yeah, located in a different country.
Can you be charged for lying about your age on social media platforms, saying that you are over 13 when in fact you are under 13?
I'll let you answer that.
There is no explicit law against from forbidding you from providing your accurate age to social media. Now, this comes down to their terms of service, where if they determine that you are lying or you're under the age of 13 when you have to be 13 or older to use their services, they could enforce their terms and ban you and delete you from the platform. Is that likely going to happen, though? Probably not, but they can choose to enforce their terms when and how they seem appropriate.
It's we've seen an increase, though, in that when people who are under the age of 13 who lied about their age to join up with the social media's network, whatever it is, or app, then once it's brought to their attention, they are acting pretty quickly to nuke those people off sites, right? Depends.
It depends.
Right?
Although it'll be interesting to see, given proposed U.S. law changes on how companies have to enforce their TOS. Otherwise, they could be fined. So we might see that more enforced. But again, that's like if you're under 13. If you're 15, but you're 17, I mean, you're probably nothing bad's going to happen.
No, you're not in violation of their terms of service at that point in time, depending upon what the terms of service says, right? If the terms of service says you're not allowed to lie on our platform, well, then, yeah, they potentially could take action.
Yeah, and then the platform would lose everybody.
That's true. I haven't seen a term of service anywhere that says if you lie, right? But
yeah, usually it's that 13 mark.
Yeah, exactly.
Wouldn't that be fun? TOS, no lying. Social media wouldn't exist.
That's true.
How would you suggest going about contacting law enforcement in an extortion situation? To be more specific, if you were being threatened with brute force.
Immediately bring it to the attention of law enforcement. If you have a school resource officer, approach a school resource officer. If you want to do it anonymously, you can do it via Crime Stoppers. You can also report it directly to the police department, non-911, unless you're in danger of death or serious bodily injury at the time. But that's how you would go about doing it.
What should I do when I am in a bad situation on social media? For example, my personal information gets leaked online.
I'll let you deal with that one.
Well, it depends. It depends on what bad situation you are talking about. If it's simply leaked information, the question is, what information? If it's, what's your IP address? Where do you live? I mean, that itself is not dangerous information unless someone's actively making threats about you. Like, oh, I am going to come to your house and do bad things. Okay, now we're stepping it up to a more significant, dangerous situation.
That's criminal.
Where someone just leaks photos about you. I mean, assuming they're not naked nude photographs. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that happens. So context is going to be very important. And if threats or violence or hacks involved.
Right. Like we're seeing people now who will do capture personal information of you online and then posting it publicly. Right. Like, is that illegal? In most cases, probably not. Again, it's going to come down to context.
Yeah. Did the person hack you to get that information to make it public? Yeah. Well, now that hack is the illegal part.
Correct. But if they didn't and that information was public and then they copy it and then weaponize it, is that necessarily illegal? Maybe, maybe not. Context is everything, right?
Yeah. If someone curates a profile about you, like a dossier, that's an amalgamation of all of your online personal information that's publicly accessible.
Doxing.
It's doxing, but I mean, if they got it from public sources, even if it was from 100 different public sources, but they brought it all into one profile, again, they didn't hack you. So, I mean...
Yeah.
Someone took a picture of you in my class without consent. What should I do?
A couple things here. Is there anything criminal about that? No, unless it was, say, taken in a bathroom stall, then we would. That would be voyeurism at that point in time. But if it's just in the classroom, nothing really criminal about that. However, it could be a violation of the school's policy on use of social media and cameras in the school. So if a person is taking a picture without your consent on school property, immediately report it to your teacher, counselor, vice principal, or principal for them to act upon. Again, criminally, probably no crime there unless it was done within the context of a private place like a bathroom stall, a change room where you're changing and that kind of stuff. Then that would be classified under voyeurism under the criminal code. But if it's just somebody who pulls out their camera, say right now the Be Real app is a really good example. One of the things we've heard from teachers is that notifications on Be Real can happen during school hours. And all of a sudden the students going, oh, got to take a picture. So they lift the camera out and take a covert picture of somebody without their permission. Is there anything illegal about that? No. But could it be in violation of the school terms of policy and surrounding the use of social media and cameras in the class? Probably. So bring it to the teacher's attention.
If someone is threatening to send a photo to embarrass someone multiple times, does that count as harassment?
I'll answer that one. So under the criminal code, there's something known as criminal harassment. And basically what that means is that if somebody you're saying or doing something that leads you to believe you're concerned about your personal safety, then that would be criminal harassment. It's going to be context specific. I would suggest to you that if it's something to do with like nudes or something like that, then the answer is yes. That would be uttering a threat for sure, about threatening to do something, right? For sure. And it could be criminal harassment at that point in time. But if it's somebody just sending a funny picture of you that is not a nude, it's not an intimate image or of any type, and they're just sending it to then probably not.
Right? The person's saying, I want you to do this for me, otherwise I'm going to post that.
Right. It could be a violation of a terms of service if they're doing it on a social media platform, right? Because a lot of the major social media platforms in their terms of service say that you can't use their platform for the purposes of bullying or cyberbullying. So it may be a violation under the terms of service of the specific platform. So by reporting it to that platform, they could potentially take action against the individual.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why isn't data collection illegal? Well, data collection needs to happen to some degree for services to run. I mean, how are you supposed to diagnose problems if you're not collecting data on those problems? So I think data collection, when it first started with the internet long time ago, was all around fixing problems.
Right.
But then as marketing realized, oh, there's a lot of useful information we're getting here, then it developed into maybe going beyond what is needed. So that's why we have laws such as here in Canada and the Europe and such that limits the amount of data and how it can be used.
Yeah,
but
so-
data does need to be required to be
Right.
collected.
And so data is the new oil of today's world when it comes to money making, right? Like it really is. And it's like you say, these social media vendors have learned that data that they're collecting has a lot of value from a sales standpoint for the purposes of advertising, no doubt about it. But, the data collection issue is one that, if I Google somebody here, if I'm doing a background check on somebody here in Canada, because of our privacy laws that we have here, you don't find as much as you do, say, if you're doing the same thing on somebody in the United States, where you can find just a ton of information on individuals because their laws are almost non-existent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you were to remove data collection, period, end of story, you would see a lot of problems occur. You would see a lot of services not function. Unfortunately, some data collection is somewhat needed to make technology work.
And as a result of that, a lot of it is open source, which means that anybody can grab it. Now the question is the people who are grabbing it, how are they using it, right? If they're using it in a criminal way, it is illegal. If not, if they're just using it for the purposes of venture capital to raise money, to make money, then probably not, right?
Do you think the internet is evolving for better or for worse?
I think for both. I see way more positive than I see negative taking place. But having said that, over the past 4 years is a good example. We've seen how these hate groups are now really maximizing the use of technology to spread their message, right? So, but I do think there's way more positives than there are the negatives. But really, it's no different than in the real world. One of the things that we find with a lot of adults is they still see a difference between the real world and the online world, where to today's generation, it's just one world, or what we call the online world, right? But, pre-internet, we had good things and bad things happening in the real world. Well, the same thing happens on the internet. It's just that the internet gives people a wider reach. But I do believe that there's way more good than there is bad, but the bad that is there is concerning.
Yeah, I mean, that's with any technology. I mean, when motor vehicles were being used, we saw cyber criminals using motor vehicles to commit crime. But yet people use cars to get to their jobs. So,
Right.
I mean, is it good or bad? I don't know. It's how you choose to use it.
Right. Like I know families that use iPhones to help monitor their kids' blood glucose for diabetes type 1, right? Like here's technology, an iPhone for younger people to help keep them healthy and well, right? So it's not necessarily the technology, it's how people use the technology that make it good or bad.
What is your social media platform?
Okay, I'm a boomer. Facebook.
I tend to like to enjoy YouTube, but if I want to like watch video in a short amount of time, maybe I'll turn to TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, I head over to TikTok as well. But you're also big into Discord and Twitch too, right?
Yeah, Twitch is fun. I guess if I were to go to the social networks, I open up at least every day. It's typically YouTube, Discord, and TikTok.
Yeah, and I think the reason I say Facebook is because that's where a lot of older adults who follow us, parents, teachers, that's where they follow us. But the big ones, I use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube are some of the bigger ones that I use, right? And that's primarily for the company purposes.
Is posting embarrassing videos like when you were 8 to 10 affect getting a job, even if nothing bad or mean, it's just embarrassing?
No.
From that age, yeah, probably not.
No. I think a lot of people who are looking to hire people today in HR, the hiring people, they're millennials. They're you, right? They're in their mid to late 20s. And your generation was the first generation to be brought up in this digital world. So as a result of that, you kind of understand that people will do dumb things at younger ages online. That's a part of growing up. We learn from our mistakes. So at that age, probably not. But if you're doing those same things when you're grades 11 and 12, getting ready to graduate in a college or university, then potentially, yeah.
Yeah, that's when people kind of criticize going, well, you should probably know better. And, you should have the knowledge necessary to know what's right and wrong when you reach high school. So, yeah, that's typically when people get more scrutinized for what they post.
Yep.
You said even if you delete stuff, it can still be found. So why is it so essential to screenshot chats for evidence against people trying to extort you? What I'm assuming here is why take the screenshot? The data's already there.
Because the screenshot is the first step in the evidentiary process as a part of that digital trail. You know, if you get a screenshot and you're trying, like, let's say you're making a report to the police and you're saying, hey, listen, Brandon said this about me. He threatened me. Well, the first thing the police are going to say was, show me the evidence, right? And if you don't have the screenshot, then how do I take action? Because I'm going to go to the person and say, hey, did you send a no? But if you have the screenshot to show that on this date, this time, you got this from this person, it start that evidentiary process. Now, what I would do as law enforcement is once I see that screenshot, I now know what social media platform it's on. So I'm now going to go to that social media platform with a production order in order to get the true evidence that I need to support the screenshot for the purposes of charges.
Yeah, and that's important because sometimes some social networks, people can delete information off of your account or off of your phone. So maybe, you know, if you're trying to show somebody, hey, this person said this to me, but that person deletes it, although the original might be on the server,
that's where it's going to be.
It makes it harder for you to convince somebody that this actually did occur.
Good example, Snapchat, right? The ephemeral effect of Snapchat, where you can program a snap within 3, 5, 10 seconds to disappear. Although it disappears off the device, it's important to screen capture it immediately, but it could still be on the Snapchat server. So when law enforcement applies for the production order, they get that evidence.
And not every challenge on the internet involves police. No. I mean, if there is a student at a school saying mean, rude things, nothing inherently illegal, but it breaches your school policy, well, then it's not as if a teacher or principal can create a warrant for a social network to force to provide information. Right. So depending on the path that's needed to be taken, that screenshot can make it easier for people to assist you who may not be in a position to write up a warrant.
It's a starting point, right? It's hard for the other person to say, well, I didn't say that, or I didn't post that, when you actually have it and say, oh, yeah, here it is, right? It's a starting point.
I like that. That was a good question.
Yeah,
I really liked it.
That was a good question.
It really questioned what we said.
Yeah, that's
I liked
for sure.
it.
Yeah. You do that to me all the time.
How much screen time should be an average?
You know, I'm going to answer this one. It's not how much screen time, it's what you're doing with that screen time that's really important. Like if all you're doing is using it to, you know, be a consumer where you're just consuming stuff for hours and hours and hours, that's like bubble gum for the brain, right? But if you're using it to become a creator, a producer, those types of issues, then you're using it in a positive way. So, you know, one of the things that I like to do is I like to think of the power of 3. You know, look at your time that you're awake and separate it in 3 components. You know, one component is everything that you need to do in your offline world, right? Homework, chores, all that kind of stuff. And then the other time you look at it for, you know, if you just want to play some games, if you just want to consume, we'll do that for a couple hours. And then the rest of the time you should be using it for the purposes of producing and creating. So it's not how much time, it's what you're doing with that time that is most important.
Oh, you had a coffee delivery.
Oh yeah. Starbucks, vanilla latte, sugar-free. Thank you, honey. That was Beth who delivered it. I love her. She loves me. It's just one of those things.
If you say so.
It's your mom.
Her face might tell a different story.
Whatever. She's giggling right now.
Can you just unfriend somebody if they make you uncomfortable? Yeah. I mean, you are not bound by anyone to have to stay friends or connected to somebody on the internet if you don't want to.
Goodbye.
Easy as that. Although, you know, I've had a lot of questions from people, students on, you know, how to properly block and delete people. So it's not always easy. Normally there's a couple steps. It varies social platform to social platform, but usually it's 2 to 3 buttons. You block them. They cannot see you. They cannot message you. And ultimately you create a better experience for yourself while doing that. And
some, I've heard from some of the younger teens saying that when they unfriend somebody, the other person knows it. So all of a sudden it could create a little bit more drama at the school. Like, why'd you cancel me? Right. But, you know, you have the power, right? You have the power to friend or unfriend anybody you want.
Yep. Is there a way to prevent yourself from receiving nude images?
No.
If you're on a social network, anyone can send you a message. You can limit it by ensuring the people who can message you are people who you actually know and trust, which will probably far less likely result in being received anything you find undesirable. But
what's interesting is, as you know, Brandon, Apple, they have the ability to prevent on the Apple platform, the iOS platform, from nudes being sent, right, or received. But there was so much outcry from privacy individuals saying, no, you're not you're breaching free speech. So,
well, that was through iMessage.
Yeah, that's right. So the technology is now, like I just read recently that a number of the major social media platforms are messing around with some new technology that has now just come out that will identify nudes. It'll be interesting because what if they're wearing a bathing suit, right? And that kind of stuff, right?
And different bodies come in different shapes and sizes.
Exactly.
And some people who might be bigger individuals, but they have more skin,
Yes.
it's been shown through AI that they are more likely to be dinged for nude images, although nothing's actually important showing.
Yeah, exactly.
So there are a lot of problems.
There are. But to answer the question, is there anything to prevent that from happening? No.
What do you mean by you help people? How do they contact you?
Yeah, great question. 212 right now who were considering self-harm or suicide as an option. So what happened is they heard us speak either pre-COVID or during COVID virtually. And as a result of that, they connect with us primarily on our Instagram account, or they'll give us a phone call on our toll-free number, or they'll reach out to us on the app that we have saying, hey, listen, I'm in trouble. This is what's going on. I need help. And as a result of that, we then help them deal with those situations. And now just recently, above and beyond the 212, we're now up to 121 teens since January of 2020 who have fallen victim to sextortion online. And as a result of that, they and their parents have now connected with us over the past, since 2020, so almost 3 years now, who needed help. So they connect with us the same way, usually by a phone call, via email, via Instagram message, and then we connect and then we proceed from there.
Yep. Should you save your passwords in the Google autofill? So if you have a browser and automatically logs you in and it remembers your login, personally for me, a browser password remembering systems have had flaws, and quite a few flaws over the past 10, 15 years. For me, I would rather use, say, a password manager app, be it LastPass or the Google Password or your Apple Keychain, that can integrate into your browser, but the passwords are actually saved in that secure app. I wouldn't necessarily save them in the browser.
No.
It's better now than it has been in the past, but for my peace of mind,
here's my issue. What if a frenemy all of a sudden gets access to your device because you left it unattended?
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, because you're already signed on, they can now use the autofill function, and all of a sudden they got your password, they're into your account, right?
Yeah.
That's another reason why I recommend that not to happen.
Yeah. If you're walking away from your computer and you're in a shared environment, make sure you put it to sleep. Make sure there's a password on your computer.
That's why it's kind of funny when we were traveling pre-COVID to hotels, we would see people using the hotel computers, say, to sign in for flight checks and that kind of stuff, and they wouldn't sign out of their browser. So we would go in and then poof, we're in, right?
Yes.
It was all there.
I was going to start a YouTube channel. Should I or should I not?
Go for it.
Depends what you're doing. If you're doing cool, amazing, wonderful things, if you're into robotics, you're into art, you're into really positive professional stuff that's going to really elevate your portfolio, whether you're looking for a job or grants or scholarships, go right ahead. I mean, that's totally fine. If you're a pro gamer, you have some really cool skills, show those off on YouTube. Go right ahead.
In fact, we just did a presentation today for older teens and younger adults where I recommend having a YouTube channel is actually advantageous if what you're saying and doing in your YouTube channel shines a bright light on who you are as an individual, right? So
now, if you're doing stuff that is going to be problematic,
stupid things,
well, then there can be some challenges that can follow you with that.
Yeah, for sure.
How can we report people who are being unkind on the internet?
Most social media platforms and apps have reporting tools where you can report it that way.
Yes. Now, I will say people do have the right to be mean and rude. Think of it as part of free speech and expression. So assuming they are following the rules of the social network and they're not doing anything illegal, people can be mean and rude. If you don't like it, block it, remove it, delete it.
Yeah, that's important, right? Because there's a difference between rude, mean, or disturbing behavior and stuff that is criminal or in violations of the terms of service.
Yeah.
Like, depending upon terms of service, rude, mean, or disturbing behavior may be allowed on that specific platform. There's no violation.
And often it is, because if social media were to ban that, no one would be allowed on their platform.
True.
And how do they interpret that? What's mean? What's rude? To some cultures, something's rude in our culture is rude to and mean in other cultures. It's very complicated.
Yeah, for sure.
So typically they talk about, harassment and illegal things.
Yeah, but primarily report it and block, delete.
Yeah. Can people track everything on your phone?
No, but
No.
But if the police get your phone and do a data dump on it, then the answer is yes, right? Like
True.
that's the issue, right? Is that, can the average person? No.
No. Can a company? No, because most companies have their own individual apps on your phone. Right. It's not as if they can talk to the other apps. So it's only people who have their physical hands on your phone, they plug in and do a deep look, then that's where all the information is seeable.
Right.
Is LastPass good for saving your passwords online, or should we not use it? I use it. It's great. It's a great password manager app. And there's Apple Keychain, there's Google Password,
there's Dashline, there's 1Password. There's a variety of different ones out there, but make sure you go with one that is a paid premium one, unless you're if you have an iProduct and Apple's Keychain
or the Google Password Manager.
Google
too.
Password Manager. Yeah.
There are password managers apps out there that are just simply made and they say they protect you when in fact they're designed really poorly. So any of the big proper name ones, you should be fine. And yeah, they're a great way of managing your online identity.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I legally sell photos of myself as a minor? Well, if we're talking about nude images, that's a no. But if it's just, say, if you're a model, if you, I don't know, if you play games and you're selling photos of you gaming and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that was the caveat you get. If they're nudes or intimate images, then the answer is no. That could fall into the child sexual exploitation material.
That would be distribution of intimate images.
It could be, right? So the answer is no. Now people will say, what about if it's feet pictures? Right?
Feet finder.
We hear that a lot from teens. What if it's for sugaring, right? Where they start with feet pictures. Is that illegal in Canada? Well, the answer to that question is probably not. Right? Probably not. Context is everything. However, what a lot of young people don't know is that if you're making money online, even if you're under the age of 18, you better be reporting it to Revenue Canada. Because what a lot of young people don't know is that Revenue Canada, even if you're under the age of 18, if you're making money online, you're required to report it. And if you don't, then there could be significant consequences. And trust me when I say, I would rather have the cops come after me than Revenue Canada come after me, right? So just something to think about there.
Yes, if you're making money, you have to report. What kind of tech stuff are you looking at buying this Black Friday? Or I guess, did we buy anything during Black Friday that was tech related?
We got everything that we need tech. I know that you want some upgrades on some of the stuff that we have, but what about you?
I took a look and the deals, I wasn't that impressed. There was nothing there that was like, this is a great buy. I have to buy right now. I mean, yeah, I bought a couple cables.
Really?
Just like some like charging cables. Like, you know how like charging cables kind of can get like just worn out.
Yeah.
So I got a couple new charging cables that were on a pretty decent price.
Yeah. Now you were saying that probably next year sometime we're going to update the main computer that we use, which is a PC. It looks like a small nuclear plant to me.
Yeah.
But you're looking to upgrade. What were you looking to upgrade in the system?
Well, I need to upgrade the threads available on the motherboard because there's so much video content just going through the system that we're reaching quite to the max. But hopefully by next year, maybe AMD will have the new Threadripper 3.
Hey, does your system, like when I look at it, when I go into your office to look at the computer, it looks like I say, it's like glowing. It looks like a small nuclear plant. Is it water cooled?
No, it's not.
So where would you use water cooling?
Water cooling is if you are overclocking your system and
you're gaming primarily.
Gaming, if you're trying to get the most out of your system, obviously the more power that's provided creates more heat, and the cooler you can keep your system, the more performance you can get.
Now you have how many fans does that thing have? Like
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8.
It's like unbelievable, right?
Fan cooling and thermal cooling are actually pretty close. Although there is AIO cooling, which but it's not like we're pushing our system like the actual motherboard or GPU to actually just do video live streams. It's actually very low system requirements.
I mean, if you look, hopefully Brandon will be able to do this in the cut, but if you look behind Brandon, you'll actually see all these boxes that we have of all the technology that we're using. It's unbelievable what Brandon has done here. This, I kid you not, it looks like CBC News or CNN News here, right? Like we've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different camera angles. It's just unbelievable what he's done here, right? So
what can you do besides two-factor authentication to prevent phishing?
I'll let you deal with that one, considering you did your master's degree on phishing.
That was a fun experience.
Yeah, it was.
Well, essentially,
For everybody.
well,
especially your spouse.
Essentially, looking out for the scams, and that's like I can go well in depth on what the scams do and what they can and cannot do. If you're sent a link, a message, a button that makes you log into something, don't click it. Now, if you go to the site, probably bad things won't happen just by visiting it. But if you think it's a scam, you have to log into something, just go directly to the website.
Yeah.
www.whateverit.com. Log in that way.
Yeah, I talk about in the high school program about TFA, in the middle school program as well, two-factor and multi-factor authentication. And primarily because we had a huge issue this summer over IG accounts being compromised by account takeovers because of phishing attacks, whereas if they would have implemented TFA or multi-factor authentication, it likely would not have happened, yep. Right? So, and it's simple to do. Like it's not big deal. You have to kind of enter a code. It takes you 5 seconds to do that, yep. But it just makes it safer, right? So why not use it?
Do you recommend using an iPad as a laptop alternative?
What do you think, Brandon?
I would say it depends what you want to do.
Yeah.
If you just do simple browsing, social networking, emailing, then it's probably doable and fine, especially given now that Apple now has the updates where you can plug in a keyboard, a mouse, and all that kind of stuff. If you're looking at doing anything like you can do video and photo editing, but their file system is not intuitive and there's a lot of artificial limitations. So it really depends on what you're looking to do.
Yeah, I think, a laptop is just more multifunctional.
Yeah.
Compared to the iPad. But depending upon what it is we own both, right? So depending upon what we're doing, that may be the better way to go. Like a good example, Brandon, my MacBook Pro is it's getting close to its end of days, right? I've had it for, I think, almost 6 years now. So I'm thinking about maybe looking to upgrade. And I'm thinking, okay, rather than getting another MacBook Pro, maybe getting the new iPad Pro might be the better way to go, right? Because usually I'm just using it to surf and to design PowerPoints and
but the building Keynote and PowerPoint presentations on an iPad is far more difficult than compared to using your desktop computer or your laptop. So it depends what you want to do. Yep. Simple stuff, go right ahead.
Yeah, I need the bigger screen because of my boomer eyes.
What antivirus would you recommend? Well, I can tell you the one that we use. We use here in the studio Bitdefender. That's the one that we go with. All the other ones, all the major brand name ones, they're all fine. They're good. They're decent. Bitdefender I like because it doesn't add a lot of extra fluff. A lot of antivirus programs, they compete against each other by going, we have automatic backups. We offer a VPN. And if that stuff's good to you, then sure.
Sound like a game host there. And if you buy this, you're right though. I was using another big name antivirus. And then you said, hey, Dad, try Bitdefender. And I said, really? So what was interesting is I ran both. And the Bitdefender was actually picking up on stuff that the other big name brand I was using wasn't. Yeah. So I made the hop, right? And it's been seamless and it does a really good job.
I like Bitdefender because it's lightweight, no extra fluff to it.
Yeah.
It does have extra features if you want to, but it's not an annoying system.
Yeah.
If you're using a Wi-Fi web somewhere, can people see your information through the Wi-Fi?
The answer is yes. It's called packet sniffing, and they can do that through hardware and software, like the use of a Pineapple is a really good example. And that's why we say that if you're using open Wi-Fi, you should always be using a VPN, a virtual privacy network, right? Because as soon as you turn your VPN on, it encrypts the transmission of that message so that even if it's intercepted with a packet sniffer, it is just a bunch of gobbledygook, right? So, yeah.
How do police track hackers?
It's top secret. No, I mean, there's a variety of different ways that law enforcement will go about tracking individuals. However, can they track? Is everybody trackable? No, it's getting harder. You know, a lot of people used to say Tor was the way to use it because you can't be tracked on Tor. We now know that
Tor makes it harder to be tracked,
right.
but Tor is not a perfect one-all solution that you become totally anonymous on the internet.
And what we have found is that these hackers who do eventually get caught, they all make a mistake. They all make a mistake at some point in time that just leaves a piece of a digital breadcrumb that all of a sudden can be peeled away to identify who they are.
Isn't that just like traditional crime investigation?
Yeah, we don't catch the smart ones.
It's always criminals that make the mistakes in physical and digital crime.
I know. We don't catch the smart ones when I was in law enforcement, right? We always used to say that. But even the smart ones will sometimes make a mistake unknowingly, and it creates that, like they say, that digital kernel that can now be captured and start to peel it away to find out who it belongs to.
Yeah, especially with cybercrime, because there are so many variables. I mean, I guess with like physical crime, there's variables, but generally you can kind of anticipate.
Yeah, and I think in days gone by, the reality was police, who were mostly boomers at the time, had no idea on how to use technology for the purposes of investigation. In today's world, a lot of law enforcement today are the millennials your age. They're very comfortable with technology, and the ability to track and investigate has gone up dramatically. So there's been more training, all that kind of stuff that makes it a little easier to do. Mm-hmm. I still think that police aren't doing enough. They could do more. They could put more time and effort into investigating this kind of stuff. But ultimately, that takes money, right? And so with today's budgets, like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, from a state perspective, arguably from an ethical perspective, physical crime is considered more serious because there's a risk of harm to people, which innately makes it more predominant that it needs to be investigated first.
Right. And depending upon the type of digital crime. So I know police departments that if it's a fraudulent crime and it's under $10,000, they won't even touch it. Yeah. Right. Because it's so pertinent, right? It's so common right now that they don't even touch it. So if I'm a criminal looking to do a crime, what better way to do that than to go after financial crimes under a certain amount, because they know that a lot of law enforcement won't deal with it.
Yeah, but then there's some criminals who the greed just gets a little too much,
for sure.
And then but there are criminals who try to think for that, and they intentionally do a lot of small crimes, but in aggregate are making a lot of money. But they're not
aggregate. Good word.
But they're not being investigated because it's just so little bits of dollars here and there.
That's right.
Yeah, it's an interesting world. Even though it says anonymous, can people still see my name? So I think this is in response to our Q&A system.
Right.
So how students in classrooms can send us messages during our live broadcast for the questions that we do get to answer. So we have our system that you don't get to enter your name. Unless you put your name into the question, but then we normally don't promote those questions.
Right.
So it prevents us from, at the front end, seeing your name.
Front end.
And anyone else who is connecting into our Q&A system can't see who you are, which we get a lot of really good questions.
Yeah, we've actually had more questions asked of us digitally than we ever did when we were doing in-school presentations. Primarily
sensitive questions.
Yeah, primarily because the same students don't want to ask the same questions in front of their peers for fear of peer embarrassment. So as a result of that, we're getting way more questions being asked of us, and ones that are more intimate in nature. I don't know about you, but when I was doing the high school presentations, it was amazing at the end of the presentation how many students would come up to me and ask me questions privately and said, I didn't want to say this in front of my friends, but this is what's going on. Well, now they can do it digitally on their phones.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So now, of course, it is an app, it is a system, so it does collect user information to run and operate the system. So things like it puts cookies on the computer, so if you log out, log in, your questions are still there, you don't lose your questions. IP addresses are tracked, just because that's how computers talk to each other. So if you take time and effort and investigative resources, you could probably find out who people are.
So a good example, if a student uttered a threat to us using our system, we could easily contact the police and provide them with some of the data that they would need to likely track down this individual, right?
Yeah. So our anonymous Q&A system does collect information because it needs to operate, but it's not as if people see who you are,
Correct.
which is really cool, and the cool questions we get from that. Are there specific apps we should never use?
Again, I believe it's not the app, it's how people use the app that make it more dangerous. However, there are some platforms where risks kind of increase. I mean, a good example, Omegle. A lot of teens are going to Omegle right now because you can kind of connect with some influencers who are doing some really cool things. Like I've seen some really cool things on Omegle, right? Where all of a sudden, boof, there's a person wearing a Freddy Krueger mask, but he plays classical piano and will play any song that you want. I mean, it's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, you get that shock factor.
However, on Omegle, within seconds, you're probably seeing something sexually.
You get the other shock factor
that you don't want to be seeing. So, I mean, there's no doubt that on certain Kik is another really good example, right? Yes, Kik is still around. I mean, the risks of running into somebody for the purposes of sexual predation exploitation is far greater on the Kik platform than it is, say, maybe on Instagram or on Snapchat. But it's not necessarily the app or the platform. It's how people use the app or platform that matters.
Yeah. What should you do if you are hacked? It depends on the hack. I would say, number one, check your passwords, change your passwords. If the hack you think involves a virus, install and run antivirus programs. Those are the first immediate steps.
Mm-hmm.
If I post a video not showing my face, could someone still find out what I look like and where I live?
So I'll answer that one. That question probably came about as a result of the presentation we do on the issues surrounding nudes, sexting, and intimate images. Because one of the things we say is don't do it, but if you do decide to do it, don't want you to, but if you do, make sure your face isn't in the picture. So are there ways that the video, even if your face is not in the picture, that the video or the picture being posted can still be used to track you to where you live? The answer to that question is yes, especially when it comes to the geotagging of your camera. Right. So that's why we mention in our presentations that every time you take a picture with your cell phone, it immediately records the longitude and latitude of where that picture was taken, the metadata, which you don't see. But there are programs out there that allow an individual to see that metadata. So that's why turning that off on your phone is so important. So, yeah.
Since you have a YouTube account, do you sell your followers information to get money? No, we are not currently partnered with YouTube, so we don't even make money from our videos at this point in time. We're hoping to maybe grow a channel to then actually make money from our account, but it's not as if we are the ones selling that. So YouTube, anyone who watches a YouTube video or has a YouTube account, which is a Google account, Google and YouTube is using that for advertising. Can you watch YouTube by using a fake account and a VPN to hide your tracks? It's doable. But then again, if YouTube didn't exist and use that marketing, then you would have to pay for all the videos, which means you probably wouldn't be watching this video because you probably wouldn't pay the X amount of dollars to watch it. So that is the trade-off. I mean, I enjoy the freedom and the publicness of TikTok and Instagram and Twitter and YouTube.
Twitter. I wonder if that's going to be around.
Oh, yeah, Twitter. Yeah, maybe I should. Yeah, Twitter. I think it's still live today.
Yeah, it is. It's still live. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. But
yeah. So, we are not making money. Now, once we become affiliated with YouTube, then do we make money off view count and numbers? Yes. And that's paid by Google. But it's honest if we're the ones selling the information. Like, we don't even know your information. No. Google's the one that holds that.
Right.
How do I know if a website or link is inappropriate?
That's a great question for you.
Well, first, determining what the link says. I mean, if the actual web link says something inappropriate in the title, then that might be a clear clue. If the web link is a short link or if it's a button, you won't know. Context, maybe. If someone sends you a link going, here, click this link to see something inappropriate, well, then that's the clue's context. But sometimes you won't find out until you actually hit the page.
Now, there are some like browsers out there like Google Chrome. Apple does the same thing where I can hover over a potential link to see where it may potentially go, right? To kind of give you an understanding of where it's going.
But someone turns link to a small bit.ly link.
Exactly.
And then, so someone has a button, but the link is a bit.ly link. So when you look at where the button goes, it's a bit.ly link. So even then you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you go to a bit.ly link expander, which again, how many people do that, right?
Exactly.
So there are tons of little ways, like when we're talking about hacks and scams, how links are hidden.
Yeah. Like I would be really hesitant about going to any website that doesn't start with the prefix HTTPS. Right? Like if it just says HTTP, concerning the S stands for secure, right?
Yeah, but given, HTTPS everywhere and the open certificates now that people just like secure certificates for websites are free now.
Yeah. Fair comment.
So people used to think, well, bad websites, any website that has a little lock icon immediately means it's safe. Well, no, those certificates, it means you have a secure connection between your computer to the website. It doesn't mean the website itself is good or bad. It just means your connection is encrypted.
Right.
So we're trying to work on removing that folklore, if you will. Is online dating dangerous?
It depends, right? Like,
is regular dating dangerous?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, we've actually written a blog. You can find it on our website where we talk about if you're doing online dating, here are certain things you can do to make it more secure and more safe. Right. But I mean, as an example, your partner of how many years now? You guys met online, right?
What is it, 8-9 years now?
Yeah. You guys met online.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're using online dating in an unsafe way, well, then, yeah, if you're physically dating somebody in an unsafe way, then there's a potential risk.
And what's really kind of cool is to see how many people are now getting married as a result of meeting somebody online. That's where they started, right?
I mean, any level of human intimacy does present some level of risk.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a matter of what you do to minimize the risk.
Exactly.
Do you think schools should avoid posting names of staff and students and avoid posting their pictures on social media?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. In fact, many schools now have policies in place. Like, you'll see this. You'll see teachers posting pictures of their students, and then they put stars over the face of the students, or they blur it out for personal, to protect their private information. Because not doing that, you're creating digital dossiers at younger and younger ages, right?
Some places, some geographical provinces, countries, and states have child protection laws that basically say you can't do that, or if you're going to, there needs to be consent forms from the parents. And then
now what's interesting is a lot of schools will post staff pictures of their staff, right, with their first names, their last names, email addresses for the school, and that kind of stuff. So now the question is, should schools be doing that? Should schools be posting the first and last name of a teacher? Is a really good example without their consent. So
as an employee, right? If you work for if you work for somebody, and if you have a directory to people to contact you for your line of work, then I guess the argument would be, should employers do that? Should there be job directories? But if your position is to work with the public, then you kind of need that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Opinion on doxing.
Go for it.
I have a couple thoughts on doxing.
Sure you do.
I mean, sure, people use doxing in inappropriate, harassing ways. But again, we always say, how is the data being collected and distributed? So if someone doxes you and they're threatening you and all that kind of stuff, yeah, we got problems. If someone is amalgamating all of your public information into a single spot, it's, from a legal standpoint, I mean, there's no concerns there, because if they're not making threats, they didn't hack you, then it's annoying. But if you have chosen to allow information out there about you, anyone can collect it.
Again, I think it comes down to context, right? Yeah. Like, how are they doxing you? What are they doing with that information?
Yeah. Can companies look at your search history?
If you're using your device on the network that the business owns, then yeah, they sure can.
Or if the business has bought from a data collection company your history, they can do that. Yeah. So it depends. It depends on what the company is doing.
Right. If I'm using my own cell phone and I'm connected to the company's Wi-Fi, well then yeah, they're looking, because it's going through their IT, right? However, if I'm sitting at work and I'm using my data on my phone, not connected to the network, then can they? No, they can't, because that's now a secure connection. But
yeah, are you talking about, but then again, then the cell phone company you are using can see your traffic.
Correct. Right. But a company can't necessarily do that. So I guess the answer to that question is, if you're connected to the company's network, then can they search your history on what you're doing on that network? Yeah, they sure can. Right.
Is it possible to hack face recognition or fingerprint recognition for security measures on a phone? Actually, I guess we kind of already answered that.
Yeah, the answer is yes, but probably not.
Probably. If you're a government spy, okay, maybe you don't want to use that security. But I mean, if you're just a normal, average person, you're probably fine.
Yeah, for sure.
What kind of content do you recommend teens to post? Be specific.
Yeah, we actually just did that presentation. It's called Leveraging Social Media for College, University, Sport, and Employment Opportunities. So one of the things I say is that, let's say you're wanting to get a scholarship or a grant, sports scholarship or grant. Well, then I'm going to be posting issues such as what I'm doing in practices, what I'm doing in games, stuff like that. That's what I'm going to posting to shine a light on what it is I'm doing, hopefully to attract the attention of a college or university when it comes to a scholarship. If you're a person who's looking for an academic scholarship, then what I'm going to be posting are things specifically to academics. Maybe it's my writing abilities. Maybe it's, I want to get involved in engineering. So I'm going to be posting stuff about what I'm building and doing stuff like that. So that's what we're kind of talking about.
You want to be in the movie industry and make movies, then post your small projects.
Yeah, you want to be a coder? Show some of the coding programs that you're doing.
You want to be an animator? Show your animations.
Correct. Like we got a friend of ours whose son is in grade 12, graduating this year, and his Lego animations, not the stop motion, but actual digital, is unbelievable.
Yeah, Blender animations.
And in fact, Lego has connected with him directly to say, hey, listen, kid, once you graduate, give us a call because we might have a job for you.
Yeah,
right?
all because of their public sharing and post, and now they're monetizing their YouTube because they're getting so many views.
Exactly.
So, I mean, there's tons of opportunities there. Those are our questions.
Some good questions
from November.
Like you say, a couple of them really challenged some of our beliefs, right? Which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. I always say that, we are always movable from our positions, right? Mm-hmm. Depending upon discussions, right? And current events. So a couple of those questions were really good questions. And what that tells me is that these students are listening to what it is that we're saying.
Yeah.
Right. Which is really kind of cool.
Which is what we love about how we get these questions now, that we get students answering on their own devices without having to embarrass themselves in front of their classmates. Yeah. And we can answer these really important questions.
And the other cool thing is that, like you say, we've been receiving way more questions than we ever did when we were doing in-persons, right? Because of the anonymity of them being able to do it using their devices. Kind of cool.
Hence why we do these videos.
Yeah.
Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you all next time as we collect all the questions that we didn't get time to answer in our live broadcast. Till next time, stay safe, everybody.
See you later.
Bye-bye.